Hey boys and girls, it's Chief Wynn with the Pittsfield Police Department, here for another book in Storytime with the PPD. And it's still Thursday night, and the furnace is still running, so I'm going to have to talk a little louder. And I thought for this one, I would read one of my mother's favorite books, and actually my mom dropped this one off. This is The Tale of Peter Rabbit, originally told by Beatrix Potter. Let's get started. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits. Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother underneath the root of a big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go down the lane, but don't go in to Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there and was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor." Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuce and some green beans. Then he ate radishes. Feeling rather sick, Peter went to look for some parsley. Because if you didn't know, if you have an upset stomach, parsley will help with that. Peter rounded the end of the garden only to meet face to face with Mr. McGregor. "Stop, thief!" cried Mr. McGregor, and he jumped up, waving his rake, and ran after Peter. Peter was so frightened, he forgot the way back to the gate. He lost both shoes in the garden. Still, he might have gotten away if only he hadn't run straight into a gooseberry net. The large brass buttons on his new red jacket caught in the net. Trapped, Peter cried as friendly sparrows flew to him. Closer and closer came Mr. McGregor, but just in time, Peter wriggled out, leaving his jacket behind him. Peter rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful place to hide if it hadn't had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor, sure that Peter was somewhere in the shed, looked under each flower pot. "Kershoo!" Peter sneezed, and Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. Peter jumped out a window with Mr. McGregor a step behind. But the window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to work, but he hung Peter's little jacket and shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Poor Peter wandered about, lippity-lippity, looking all around. He passed an old mouse and a white cat. Then he heard the scritch, scratch of a hoe. Peter scurried into a wheelbarrow and peeped over to see Mr. McGregor. Beyond him was the gate. Peter ran as fast as he could go, then slipped under the gate. He never stopped running until he reached home. He was so tired he flopped down on the floor, while his mother wondered what he had done with his clothes. Poor Peter did not feel very well that evening. He was so tired his mother put him to bed and gave him a dose of chamomile tea. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. And I think the lesson in that one is you should always do what your parents say and stay out of Mr. McGregor's garden. And that has been The Tale of Peter Rabbit, originally told by Beatrix Potter. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know that I did. And I hope that my mom is listening to this one because I know that's one of her favorite books. That's for you, Mom.